and welcome. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at the headlines. Hamas will likely release 33 hostages as part of a ceasefire deal with Israel. Joe Biden says a truce is on the brink after 15 months of intense fighting in Gaza following the 7th of October attacks. The president of the International Court of Justice, Nawaf Salam, has been named as Lebanon's new prime minister. Two-thirds of the MPs voted for Salam, who will return to the country today. The Kremlin has accused Kyiv of energy terrorism and say they pose a threat to Europe's energy sector. This comes after Ukrainian drones targeted Russian gas pipelines and the US imposed further sanctions on Russian oil. The trial of impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been adjourned after he failed to attend. The suspended president skipped the trial, which comes after his failed martial law bid. Lebanon has a new prime minister. Prominent diplomat and president of the International Court of Justice, Nawaf Salam, has been named to lead the country. The Lebanese parliament selected Salam on Monday following a nomination by Western-backed groups and independents, though his appointment has sparked anger among Hezbollah and its allies. Salam's nomination, supported by Saudi Arabia and Western nations, is seen by many as a hopeful sign after the 14-month Israel-Hezbollah war that claimed over 4,000 lives and left nearly 20,000 injured. Despite past opposition from Hezbollah, which labelled him a US-backed candidate, Salam's appointment brings renewed focus on resolving the ongoing challenges in Lebanon. Hezbollah's parliamentary bloc has voiced concerns over Salam's stance, with Mohammed Raad stating they will assess his actions, particularly regarding the withdrawal of Israeli forces, prisoner returns and post-war reconstruction. We now head to our correspondent Aditya Wadwan. Aditya, thank you very much. Why is this a pivotal moment for Libya? Why is it so important that this Prime Minister has been put in place?
Well, Josh, it can be thought there is a commonality between the election of the President of Lebanon and Prime Minister of Lebanon. Both are Western-backed. This becomes a very significant and a pivotal moment, Josh, because, Donald Trump, the US President-elect, is set to take the oath as President of the United States of America on January 20th. And just before his oath-taking ceremony, both the President and Prime Minister of Lebanon are US-backed. This shows that this can prove to be instrumental in securing a ceasefire deal between the Hamas and Israel, as well as the Hezbollah based in Lebanon. Yes, George, back to you in the studio.
We're now joined by Professor Madhav Nalapat, who is the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Thank you very much for joining us, Madhav. We're looking at a situation that, although may be supported by the West, there is definitely going to be some sort of anger amongst supporters of Hezbollah and Hezbollah themselves. Do you think that this is going to create a divide within Lebanon? How might that play out over the coming months?
Look, I'd like to say that Hezbollah has been part of the group that is opposed to Israel and which calls for the elimination of Israel. And it has paid a very heavy price for it. Now it's no longer able to get supplies via Syria. That's been cut off. And now you have a president who frankly has nothing to do with Hezbollah, far from it. So as far as the US backing is concerned, well, the US backing depends on who is backing him by the afternoon of January 20th, because that is when Donald Trump takes charge. The current administration is in its final days in power. So as far as a permanent peace is concerned, no, I don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen, although Hezbollah has been severely weakened. There's no doubt about it. And I think it has made a mistake by going after Israel. And I think, but of course, part of the reason is the fact that back in the 1980s, Ariel Sharon intervened on behalf of the Maronite Christians against the Shia people in Lebanon. I think that was not a very wise thing to do, and unfortunately Israel has been paying a price for it. But now, finally, Hezbollah seems to be on the ropes. So its opposition In parliament, I don't know, but at least on the ground, Hezbollah is a very much more weakened force than it was when it declared itself on the side of Hamas on October 7, 2 years ago.
We're also joined by Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who is a Middle East affairs expert. Professor Gunaratne, I would like to ask you about the importance of Salam's former position and recent position being designated as the President of the International Court of Justice. How do you think this role and the International Court of Justice's sort of sanctions and regards towards Israel, how do you think that will play out given his importance in the ceasefire holding?
Nawaf Salam is a brilliant leader. He was the president of the International Court of Justice before he was appointed as Lebanon's new prime minister. We cannot think of someone better than him to restore the stability and security of Lebanon. What is important to understand is that Lebanon has today a very good president and a very good prime minister. This is the best time to make sure that Hezbollah does not emerge or re-emerge, because the Lebanese people have suffered and suffered and suffered because of this organization, this terrorist group. And it is so important for the international community to work with both the Prime Minister and the President of Lebanon to ensure that the military defeat of the Lebanese Hezbollah is translated to political gain by ensuring that their weapons are taken away and to ensure that the Lebanese military becomes the dominant power in Lebanon. I had visited Lebanon. I have seen what is happening in Lebanon. And I think that this is the best opportunity the world has to build Lebanon and support Lebanon into a stable nation.
Professor Gunaratne and also Professor Nalapat, thank you both for joining us. From one war-torn region to another, and we move to the Russia-Ukraine war, where the Kremlin has accused Ukraine of energy terrorism after an attempted drone attack on a major gas pipeline that carries Russian gas supplies to Turkey. This accusation, which Ukraine has not commented on, comes amid rising tensions in the ongoing energy dispute between the two countries. Almost 3 years after Russia's full-scale military invasion of Ukraine on January the 1st, Ukraine made a significant move by halting the transit of Russian gas to third countries via its territory, effectively ending decades of energy cooperation that had brought billions of dollars to both nations. This decision was part of Ukraine's strategy to cut off revenue streams for Moscow's military efforts. We'll head again to our correspondent Aditya Wadwan. Thank you, Aditya. Why do you think the Kremlin has used such extreme language, energy terrorism?
Well, you see, Josh, Russia has been a major supplier of gas and energy to Europe. So this is very significant when it says that this is like an energy terrorism. That as Ukraine has launched a massive attack on the Russian Kazan city and another province of the Russian. This seems that the energy demands that the Russia meets of Europe is under threat. Earlier what had happened, the United States of America has also sanctioned the energy sector of Russia. This is primarily because the America and the Western Europe wants Russia to bring Russia back upon the negotiating table, so that this Ukraine-Russia war can be ended. This has been going for the last 2 to 3 years. This is a major reason why Donald Trump also lifted the restrictions on the use of long-range missiles for Ukraine in the deep inside the Russian territory. So, as Trump also said that as soon as he takes oath as the president of the United States of America, he will end this Russia-Ukraine war. So, this can all be seen in that line. Yes, Josh, back to you in the studio.
We are now joined by Gilbert Doctorow, who is a Russian affairs expert. Gilbert, I'd like to look at the Kremlin statement and the words that have been used. If what Ukraine is doing is energy terrorism, what are the Russian strikes on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure?
The strikes on the Ukrainian infrastructure concern Ukraine. The Ukrainian strikes on the Russian infrastructure are concerning Europe. So there is something of a difference here. They're not balanced. And the Russians were addressing themselves really to the West Europeans to explain to them that they're not supporting with arms and money a country that is doing them as much economic harm as it can. If they have already cut the pipelines which traverse Ukraine and which were supplying for decades Russian gas to Central Europe. Now they are not satisfied with that. They are attempting to destroy Russia's supply to Europe through the Turk Stream pipeline.
Gilbert, but the central, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the Central European nations that are receiving this gas from Russia are supporting Ukraine. Do you not think those conversations would have been had diplomatically before the decision was made? And if so, is that solidarity with Europe and Ukraine? And does that sort of take the effect towards Russia as more of a sole effect?
Well, the countries that are receiving gas via the Russian pipelines which traversed Ukraine were three. They were Austria, Slovakia, and Hungary. How you want to categorize them, I think this is an arbitrary question. They are European Union members, and they were all harmed by the actions that Ukraine has taken. So how can we further look at it? The attacks now on the Turk Stream are, the supplies going into the Turk Stream are reaching other parts of Europe, the Balkans in particular. The point is here that the countries that are supposedly assisting Ukraine with U.S. urging are themselves being subjected to attacks by Ukraine on their economic interests. And this is a rather peculiar logic if you were a European country.
Thank you, Gilbert Doctorow, joining us from Brussels. We're now also joined by Glenn Grant, an ex-advisor to the Ukraine Defence. He is joining us from Latvia. Glenn Grant, thank you very much for being here. Looking at the impact of the statements, do you think it will have an impact, if any, on the Ukrainian government? And do you think the sort of coalition that we're seeing between the US with their sanctions and Ukraine with their actions shows a strengthening of ties between the West and Ukraine?
I think it's quite a complex thing, and first of all, the words from Russia are nonsense, of course, because they've been attacking the Ukrainian energy sector, and it's not just harmed Ukraine; it's harmed others as well, because people have had to help pay for that. So the whole idea that one side is terrorism and the other side is okay is complete nonsense. And the fact of the matter is that the three countries that are involved, Hungary, Austria and Slovakia, are all pro-Russian countries. They've been given plenty of opportunity by the European Union to reassess how they get their energy and to get their energy from other people. And they haven't done so because they are trying to be in the Russian camp. So this should come as no surprise to them. They've had 3.5 years to change their energy infrastructure, and they've not done so because they support Russia. So I think that now is wake-up time for these people. They'll get no sympathy from anybody else in Europe, and the European Union is already pressurizing them to sort of wake up and grow up. So I think that you're going to see Ukraine is not going to change. Ukraine is going to keep hammering at the energy sector for Russia because it's got to cut the Russian money and it's got to cut the Russian energy, because that's how they will destroy the business infrastructure in Russia, which will bring them to the table.
Glenn Grant, we only have a couple of minutes, so just a very quick response to this one. Do you think that the actions by Ukraine and their allies, namely the US, in terms of these sanctions, do you think these might have an impact in a potential end to the fighting, with talks set to start when Donald Trump takes power?
I think so, but not yet. But Putin's got absolutely no reason for wanting to stop his war at the moment. He's still getting enough money in to keep it going, and he still thinks he's winning on the Eastern Front. So I don't think that we're going to see a change just yet.
Glenn Grant, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you, Gilbert Doctorow. We now move on, where a hopeful sign of progress in the Hamas and Israel peace and ceasefire talks continue, with Hamas set to release 33 hostages as part of this agreement, which is apparently nearing completion. On the other hand, Qatar's Emir met with US envoys from both the Biden and Trump administrations, expressing optimism that a truce could soon be finalised. Here's the full update.
On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition.
Hamas is set to release 33 hostages as part of a ceasefire agreement nearing completion, offering hope for a resolution after a long term of conflict. For the first time in months, negotiators in Doha are finalizing a deal that could halt the 15-month-long fighting, bring humanitarian aid to Gaza, and secure the return of hostages. However, Hamas still holds 94 of the 251 hostages taken during the October 7th attack, with 34 confirmed dead. Qatar's Emir met with Biden and Trump's envoys to discuss the progress, and both administrations expressed optimism for a deal. The ceasefire could soon be finalized, marking a turning point in the ongoing crisis.
And we are now at a pivotal point in the negotiations for a hostage deal and ceasefire in Gaza. The president spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday and just got off the phone with the Emir of Qatar. He'll be speaking soon also with President Sisi of Egypt. We are close to a deal, and it can get done this week. I'm not making a promise or a prediction, but it is there for the taking, and we are going to work to make it happen.
Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes on Gaza City have killed over 50 people, with emergency teams and locals searching the rubble for survivors and rushing the injured to Al-Ali Hospital.
قدام ناري كبير عدة ضربات في هذا المكان عدة صواريخ أو عدة ضربات في هذا المكان تم قصفه وتسويته بالأرض بالكامل.
As the world watches closely, a ceasefire could mark a critical turning point in the long-running conflict, offering hope for a peaceful resolution. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now take a look at some news updates from across the continent of Europe. EU leaders will meet in Belgium on February the 3rd for a key defence summit, joined by UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte. The talks will focus on boosting Europe's defence capabilities and addressing the threat from Russia. With Donald Trump's return to power, EU and UK leaders are preparing for a shift in US policy. Topics will include support for Ukraine, private and public defence financing, and deepening EU-UK security ties. This meeting will shape future EU defence strategies and cooperation. Russia and Iran are set to sign a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty on January the 17th. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian will visit Moscow for official talks with Vladimir Putin. The two leaders will discuss expanding cooperation in trade, investment, transport, logistics and humanitarian efforts. Both nations face heavy Western sanctions. The treaty follows a similar agreement Putin signed with North Korea last year. This deal strengthens military and political ties between Moscow and Tehran amid ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has unveiled plans to position Britain as an AI superpower. Speaking after launching the AI Opportunities Action Plan, Starmer vowed to ease regulations and attract AI investment. The plan includes 50 recommendations to improve AI in public services, like healthcare and education. Starmer emphasised a pro-growth, pro-innovation approach to AI regulation, setting the UK apart from the EU and US strategies. A national data library will also be created, providing public data for AI research. An inquest has revealed that mechanical failure caused the helicopter crash that killed Leicester City owner Vichai Srinivada Prabha and 4 others in October 2018. A duplex bearing the tail rotor became seized and locked, causing the aircraft to lose control. The pilot, Eric Swaffer, tried to correct the situation but could not prevent the fatal crash. Srinivada Prabha's family described him as a good man with a good heart. The family has launched a $2.15 billion legal action against the helicopter's manufacturers. The inquest is set to last 2 to 3 weeks. King Charles III will attend a ceremony in Poland to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. The visit will be his first to the former Nazi concentration camp. Ahead of January the 27th, Charles will meet with community leaders in Krakow and Polish President Andrzej Duda. The camp remains a symbol of Nazi atrocities, where 6 million European Jews were killed. Several international delegations are expected at the ceremony, including Israeli officials, despite political tensions. A nationwide strike in Belgium over pension reforms has disrupted flights, trains and schools. Brussels Airport saw 40% of flights cancelled, and Charleroi Airport halted departures due to a shortage of security staff. Rail services were also heavily affected, with only 1 in 3 of trains running. Teachers joined the strike, particularly in Flanders. The protest is against pension cuts proposed by the new government, including raising the retirement age for railway workers. Unions are demanding action and will hold demonstrations in Brussels today. That is all we have time for. We'll be back shortly with more of your latest international news updates.